Nobody dies. Nobody dies unless we let them. Those are her words. She said, people only die because we let them. She thought that nobody cared about her. Well, I care about her. I don't want you to die. Please. Live for me.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
Ask someone to kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that worked!
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hello and welcome to the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And this week we're talking about A Matter of Time from 1976. A Matter of Time was directed by Vincente Minnelli. It was written by John Gay based on the film of Memory, a 1955 novel by Maurice Druon. And it was produced by Jack H. Skirball and J. Edmund Grainger for American International Pictures.
A Matter of Time stars Liza Minnelli as Nina, Ingrid Bergman as Contessa Lucretia Sanziani, Charles Boyer as Count Sanziani, Isabella Rossellini as Sister Pia, Tina Aumont as Valentina, Fernando Rey as Charles Van Maar, Spiros Fokas as Mario,
Orso Maria Guerrini as Gabriele Dorazio, Amedeo Nazzari as Tufik, Giampero Albertini as Mr. De Perma, Arnoldo Foà as Pavelli, Anna Proclaimer as Jean Blasto, and Domino as Hotel Porter. We should probably mention that this movie was chosen for us randomly by our random movie generator, and that should become obvious as we describe the plot.
Like so many other AIP movies, this one opens with a warning. The warning is as stated. This is a story that really happened a few years ago to a young country girl who one day left her home and family and came to the big city in search of a new life. What you're about to see may appear like a fairy tale. As we all know, some fairy tales come true. Into each life, a magic moment comes that changes everything. That magic moment happened for Nina in just a matter of time.
We open in what we believe is 1954, the present day, in the course of this movie, at a press conference, which is going to be presented by Miss Nina, no last name. The person organizing the press conference tells the press to have a seat and watch some clips from Nina's work as an actress.
While the press is waiting for Nina to arrive, they are shown a montage of some of her film work. And what's interesting is that these film clips also include clapboards, and every single one of them is from a film called Nina, which is the working title of this film, released overseas as Nina.
Oh.
So I'm wondering if those were actual clipboards from the
production?
film, from this actual production that were edited in as we get into how this movie was put together when we talk about that later.
Right. You should know, though, that these clips have nothing to do with anything. They're a bunch of period piece romances. Nina is in different costumes, and it looks like maybe some outtakes or behind-the-scenes footage here. And it all looks kind of murky and dull. And over the top of this, we're listening to Nina/Liza sing the title song from this movie, A Matter of Time.
After this film montage, it's announced that Nina will be arriving in approximately 15 minutes, and a reporter asks if she's going to be on time, and the producer assures him that Nina is nothing but a professional.
Vicari, the producer, mentions that he met Nina years ago when she was a maid at a hotel, and he spotted her in a restaurant.
And then we cut to a car. Nina's in the back with a man, and she's holding a hand mirror and looking into it, and he inquires about this mirror, and she says there's a story behind it, but it's a long story.
She looks in the mirror, she's gazing at herself, and then we dissolve to a flashback where We see Nina dressed in a yellow suit, preparing to get on a little bus that's leaving her village. All around her is chaos. There's a man trying to wrestle a pig from two little boys, and that's Nina's dad. She's trying to say goodbye to him, but he doesn't have time for her because of this pig incident.
So she kind of yells goodbye as she hops on the bus and heads to Rome.
And we get the first of many travel montages as she does. She's looking out the window, looking at all the sights that are available to see as you drive into Rome. And we end up at the Piazza Mattei,
where her cousin Valentina has landed her a job as a chambermaid.
Nina goes up to the front desk and asks about her cousin. She doesn't get any help, but it doesn't matter because her cousin Valentina at that moment comes down the elevator and greets her and takes her up to their shared room.
On the way there, she's pointing out some of the rooms with the regulars, and one of these is the Contessa, and Valentina warns Nina that she needs to be prepared for anything with her.
She also points out that there's one room with an American girl who wants to be an actress and who likes girls, so watch out. Nothing ever comes of this, though, so it's hardly worth mentioning. And yet mention it they do.
And you did, too. I didn't even write it down.
Nina's very surprised that a real Contessa lives in this hotel, given how shabby it is, I think. And we see that when Valentina takes Nina up to their shared room, she shows her which side is hers. It's the side with the window. Valentina hates the sun. But it's nice that they have their own bathroom. "Aren't you glad you came?" asks Valentina, who then goes right back to work.
And then we cut to the next day, and Nina, too, is getting to work. She's wheeling a cart of mops and bedding down the hallway, and she knocks on a wall before entering the room of Mario. And he's a frustrated screenwriter, and she tries to make up his bed, but kind of makes a mess of things.
She also interrupts his monologue because he's off on a rant about something. He's trying to compose something in his head, I think, and she really has to work to get his attention. But yeah, he has some papers stacked on his bed, and even though he gave her permission to make his bed, he then has a conniption because she's touching his work. He gets so frustrated that he has to go out. So she has to move his papers anyways and make his bed.
So he leaves, and she notices a picture on his mirror of a woman in a strange pose, and she mimics and mocks it, and then goes on to change his bedding.
Now we're at a flower shop where none other than Ingrid Bergman, one of my favorite actresses, just not here, as the Contessa swans into a flower shop, asks that all the tuberoses be sent to her room, and says, "Oh, the porter will pay the bill."
And back at the hotel, Nina's continuing to work her shift, and she enters the Contessa's room from finding it empty. And she just sets about her work.
She seems like she's kind of poking around, though. She's curious. She wants to find out more about this Contessa. Meanwhile, the Contessa is selling the last of her jewels. And for this, she gets 60,000 lira. And at this point in time, Italian lira was printed on giant pieces of paper. So when she gets her money, it's a huge wad of bills. It wouldn't even fit in a purse.
And back at the Contessa's room, Nina finds a case under the Contessa's bed. So naturally, she pulls it out and opens it and finds it's full of reprints of art. And she lays them all out on the bed so she can look at them all at once.
The subject of all of these different prints is the Contessa. And they're all in different styles. So apparently she's been the subject of many different artists. We can tell it's her because they all have her signature raccoon-style eye makeup. And she also finds in that box some banknotes or financial papers of some kind.
She hears the door open and close, and so immediately begins cleaning up the mess she made. She crosses herself and then flips the mattress.
Downstairs, the Contessa arrives at the front desk. She wants her key because they're keeping it for her. And she also wants to remind the porter that when those flowers come, that he's going to pay for them. And the porter says, "Sure, but give me some money first." And she's not very happy about that arrangement.
In the past, it's never been a problem for the hotel to pay for her deliveries and bill for them later. She's used to dealing with a man called Aldo, but this isn't Aldo, this is Renato. And Renato says, "Don't call me Aldo." Says Aldo died 10 years ago. And then the manager comes out and reminds her that she's 11 weeks past due in payments.
She's pretty offended at being called out like this, but she relents and digs up the 60,000 lira that she just received for that jewelry and hands it to him. He tries to apologize. He says he's just doing his job. Doesn't she understand? And she responds by insulting his tie.
But that was a close one, and she was able to save face.
Right. But we start to get the sense here that she's maybe unbalanced, not all there. She doesn't know Aldo from Renato.
So now we see an older gentleman being driven up to the hotel. He goes up to the desk and says he'd like to see the Contessa. And the manager is reluctant to talk to him until he announces himself as her husband.
The Count.
At which point the manager is happy to escort him up to the 5th floor.
Quite obsequiously is what I put in my notes. He's very deferential because this is royalty. Although so is the Contessa, but he's not above yelling at her. I guess it's the money thing.
When they reach her room, her door is ajar. They enter, and the Count immediately sends the manager off.
With no tip.
And he finds the Contessa out on the balcony.
Apparently it's been 40 years since they last spoke with each other. And yet the Contessa still holds a grudge.
And she also says she's been expecting him.
Which surprises him, but he says, "You've always surprised me."
She says she plans to live with Durazio.
Durazio is the man that she left the Count for long ago. Well, the Count asks, isn't he dead?
They continue having kind of an argument, and we never really learn why the Count showed up in the first place.
He doesn't really get to say what he wanted. It may be that he just wanted to check on her, but she doesn't welcome that in any way. She sings the praises of Durazio, who may or may not be alive, to the Count, and then he takes his leave. He's way over her betrayal, but surprised at how little she's changed in all this time. He stops at the front desk before he leaves, where the manager is still bowing and scraping before him. But he says, "If anything should happen to her, I do not wish to be informed," and then he leaves.
Nina's opening a window, and there are many, 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 many birds flying around outside.
It's a scary amount of birds. It's a Hitchcockian amount of birds. But she's delighted somehow.
And Nina enters the Contessa's room, starts to turn her bed. The Contessa is holding the hand mirror that we saw earlier in the film.
The magic mirror. And she's kind of spouting off some philosophy here. She says that you should never turn away from joy or suffering. Take all you can. Life never gives anything back.
She starts asking Nina about herself and finds out that Nina is 19 and has been spending time with a chemist, which does not impress the Contessa at all.
And I think she left him behind in her little town before she left, because she did just get there. So it has to be someone from her past now. And he's not written her since she got there. So the Contessa says, forget him. You don't want to be a chemist's wife. And then she hands her the mirror and demands that she look at herself.
Which she does, and she tells her to look into it and to see her own beauty, but to not just look into it, to feel it with the mirror, and the mirror is part of that.
Yes, the mirror must be beautiful too.
And Nina points out a birthmark on her forehead.
It's hidden by her hair. You couldn't see it if someone didn't take the time to point it out to you.
But the Contessa promises that one day there will be men, important men, who will go to their damnation for the sake of pressing their lips to it.
I mean, that's kind of gross. In the hotel dining room, Mario, the writer, is complaining to Vicari, the director, this is back in the past, of course, that he can't get the rape scene right. Like, oh my God. They're also speaking with a reporter who's sitting at the table with them.
The Contessa enters, and she sits alone at another table, and she becomes the topic of conversation at the table with Mario and Vicari and the reporter.
And all the rest of the men there. The director says she was once the greatest love goddess in Europe, inspiration to many artists of renown, and even Kaiser Wilhelm.
The reporter is interested in the stories she must have to tell. The restaurant's owner says that she helped him get started in this business because she was an early customer of stature. She had come in one day and asked what his specialty was, and he said it was beans cooked in oil.
Yum.
She asked for a pheasant, and he obliges, and being a person of renown, she returned again and again and brought all of Rome with her. This
scene is very badly dubbed, by the way, as are many scenes in this movie. The reporter wants to go interview her, and he sits at her table while she's waiting for her food to arrive. But she says her life is told to her alone.
He asked her if she would have any interest in writing her memoirs, and it would be interesting just because many of the people that she had been involved with have since died.
She says no one is dead, that death is the end of suffering, and that's bad. I think that's a little contradictory, but that's how I have it in my notes.
No one is dead. No one dies unless we wish them to be. Wish them to. That is the secret I will share with you. You see, time, it doesn't exist. It isn't terrible, I admit, not to be able to suffer anymore.
She gets served her food and tells the reporter to come by her house tomorrow, her house in Hyde Park. I don't think she has a house in Hyde Park. I think she's just fobbing him off. And then we watch her eat cheesy spaghetti.
And back at the hotel, Nina and Valentina are turning beds, as is their job, and there's still many, many birds outside.
And then all of a sudden the Contessa starts shrieking, "Jean! Jean!" Nina goes running to her room.
The Contessa asks Nina to bring her a sari from the closet, and Nina goes to the closet and comes back holding her empty hands and says, "Here it is."
At this point, the Contessa does not know who Nina really is. She thinks she's Jean, and she's getting Jean dressed to go out to some important event. She says it's okay if they're late. Important men should wait.
So the Contessa may not be totally in her right mind, but she's in enough of her right mind to see that there's nothing in Nina's hands, so she sends her back to the closet, where Nina says there's nothing in here but a box. But she looks inside, and hey, there's the sari.
Yeah, that was a real duh moment for Nina there. The sari was given to the Contessa by an Indian ambassador, and now she wants Nina to wear it.
So she has Nina put it on, and Nina looks at herself and then says, "If only I could be like you."
But that's the wrong answer.
Well, the Contessa says, "Never wish to be like anyone else in this world, unless you want to be a copy. Copies, of course, they only produce mediocrity.
The world worships an original.
If you're not an original, you're nothing."
She's not wrong. She may be a little daffy, but some of her philosophy is right on point.
And now the Contessa must cut Nina's hair.
Makeover time.
Yep, she gives Nina a complete makeover.
A severe bob. She cuts off, 2 feet of hair, but she does it perfectly. She has not a hair out of place when this is done. And she looks very Liza at this point.
And the Contessa hands Nina the hand mirror to look at herself. And then she says, "Now you look as you should. You may go."
She's sending her out on this imaginary date. So this imaginary man that she's dating, for him, she must be herself or be silent. He will pay a high price for what he perceives as your value. And then she tells her that when they go walking, you'll see a large diamond necklace. Point out its value. You don't have to say anything else. He'll do the rest. So this is a memory that she has from her past when she was wearing the sari.
So Nina is ready to leave, but she doesn't want to take the Contessa's sari with her, so she offers to give it back.
But the Contessa says no, she'll never wear it again. And she wishes Nina as much happiness and as much suffering as she's had in her life, which is a mixed blessing. But at least at this point, she has enough clarity to call her by her actual name. So now she does know she's talking to Nina.
So as Nina leaves the room, we hear Liza singing about a me she hasn't met yet, or a her she hasn't met yet.
It's the Me I Haven't Met Yet. It's one of the songs from this movie. I think there's 3 songs that she sings. 2 are original. And while she's singing this song, she's remembering, how do we put this? She's dreaming the Contessa's memory, but it stars herself in the role of the Contessa, wearing the sari, walking down with the Indian ambassador and his minion, looking at the necklace, pointing to it, and we see the minions scurry off to buy it for her. And then she snaps back to reality.
And she immediately goes to bed, still wearing the sari.
She jumps under the covers. She pretends to be sleeping as Valentina comes in. It was a fake memory, but she still has that necklace that came with the sari. Not the big diamond necklace. This movie is so confusing sometimes.
The next day is Nina's first day off.
And she's wearing the same yellow suit that she wore when she got there, only this time she took out the little shirt that went underneath it, so it's kind of provocative. It shows some cleavage.
Valentina notices the difference in Nina. Her hair is shorter, her makeup's different, her nails and dress.
She's very glamorous now.
And Nina is off to see Rome, and so are we, via montage.
But before she goes, Valentina says, "Watch out for the..." And then we cut to the montage. So apparently Nina is standing in a square, aghast at the many, many sights of Rome. It's obviously not something she can see from where she's standing, but we don't see her moving around. This is just some stock footage of Rome, I believe.
After her long day out, Nina returns to the hotel, and she's singing as she lays down to bed, exhausted. But she doesn't lay down for long before she hears the Contessa yell for Jean.
Poor Jean. The Contessa wants to dictate a letter to someone in the past. She's going on about some old lover who's taking her to a casino. This old lover is named Two-Fig. I think we're in Monte Carlo, perhaps, at this point. Two-Fig is a real heck of a guy who pays her gambling debts while she sits at the table.
And the Contessa says a fortune teller once told her there would be hardships at the end of her life at the age of 72. But she's 72 now, and the Contessa starts to flip out.
She gets very hysterical, and unfortunately she's loud enough to attract some attention here. Negative attention from the manager and some of the staff. They come pounding on her door. They say that they're going to throw her out by Monday night, and by now the Contessa is catatonic.
Nina asks the Contessa to not give up on her memories for both their sakes, and she says that the Contessa has made Nina think of herself in ways that she's never considered before.
Yeah, as somebody else.
And then we see an example.
We're back at the casino.
Except this time, it's Nina in place of the Contessa.
And while Nina is doing so badly at this gambling table, her lover Two-Fig gets arrested right behind her.
She's only concerned because, as she says it, her bankroll of 400,000 francs has just been arrested.
But she still owes some money, and the only way that she can pay is by dropping some of her jewels at the table. She's got a beautiful ruby and diamond necklace, and she says, "I believe this should cover it," and hands it to the dealer, we'll say. And I think he agrees. And then we go back to Nina's present. She's standing in her room at the mirror, taking off her tiny little wristwatch, saying, and give this to the staff, but in the memory that she's living in, it's a bracelet that matches the necklace that she drops on the table. So everyone's kind of demented in this movie.
And now back to reality. Nina is working again in her chambermaid outfit and pushing the cart in the hall. She has taken the financial certificates that she had found in the Contessa's
private box under the bed,
and she pockets those. Then she goes into Mari's room where she's attacked.
Yeah, he basically tries to rape her, and he's pawing her and saying horrible things to her. But then we figure out that he's just acting out that scene that he's having trouble with. And this version isn't any good either.
Yeah, she seems to think he should try another approach.
Yeah, don't attack chambermaids for one.
She explained that she found these certificates from 1903 in the Contessa's room, and wants to know if he knows if they're worth anything, because if they are, then she can pay for her room and the Contessa doesn't have to leave.
Without even really looking at them, he declares that they are worthless, and if she can't pay, they should kick her out. Nina is terribly offended by this, more so than she was at being almost raped by this guy. She goes on a rant about how the Contessa has more life left in her than he has between his legs, and that society is terrible to old women. It dismisses any women over 50, but unlike men, they still get honored no matter how old they are. So she just tells him that he can stuff his attitude and his stupid rape scene too. And then she tears off.
She's going to find someone with more knowledge about financial certificates. So I guess she goes to the bank.
Which she should have done in the first place, I think we can agree.
And she learns that these certificates are worth 150,000 lira.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of money. I think even in the current, lira to dollar comparison, it's not all that much. But it's a lot more than the Contessa had before.
In today's money, it's about $2,840.
Wow, that is not very much. That wouldn't get me very far.
But $2,840 back then is significantly more than it is now.
Well, that's true.
So she goes to the hotel manager and uses that money to pay for the Contessa's room.
Man, that is a huge stack of money. She pays the Contessa's back balance, which is 17,500 lira. So she does have a considerable amount left. The manager's surprised that Nina's paying the bill, but she reassures him that this is the Contessa's money.
Back at the hotel restaurant, it appears that Mario has figured out his writer's block about that rape scene because the script is complete.
That rape scene was pivotal to the movie, I'll have you know. But this movie needs a star.
Nina's there to pick something up for the Contessa.
Her dinner.
And Antonio Vicario, the producer, notices her and says he would like to meet her. He thinks she might be great for the part of Angelique.
Mario says no, she's cold and impossible. But I wonder if she's the reason he got that rape scene right. But anyway, Mario's seen her 4 times a day, and the thought never occurred to him that she might be something.
Vicario has Mario invite her over, and he basically puts it out there to Nina that this is all his idea, and maybe if they go over, they can set up some sort of a screen test for her.
Well, he is not a good guy.
So she talks to Vicario, and they agree that she can come down for the screen test on Thursday, which is her day off.
She just kind of gape at them with open mouth when they propose this, and they eventually have to kind of send her away because I don't know if she really knows what she's in for here.
Back in the Contessa's room, she's laying out tarot cards, but Nina is only thinking about Thursday's audition.
But the Contessa does say that there is an important change in Nina's future. But then the Contessa starts giggling about some duke that she knew at a party in Venice, and we're off in Nina's imagination memory to this party. So she arrives at the party. Most of the guests are gone. She's obviously the hostess, and she's walking through the ballroom while they're sweeping up a mountain of confetti. She starts to disrobe by taking off various articles of her, we'll say, Marie Antoinette-style gown until she's just in a corset-type top and a pencil skirt. And she goes up to the band, who are starting to quit, and she says, no, keep playing. She sings a torch song called Do It Again, which is a George Gershwin and Buddy DeSilva song.
A long song.
She was wearing a wig. She takes it off. She has permed hair now. When she's done with the song, she leaves the stage and goes up to her bedroom. And in her bedroom is the Count. It's Charles Boyer is back again. He's in bed with 3-4 dogs. I lost count. She says that she's happy with him because he gives her everything she wants and asks nothing in return. Which, who wouldn't be happy with that? And then she tries to make him jealous again with tales of Dorazio. She's reliving basically the end of the Contessa's marriage here, I think. Charles says that she only loves him for his money, and she says, well, of course I do. All men should be loved for what sets them apart, whether it's poetry or art or money.
So now it's Thursday, and Nina is getting ready for her audition. Valentina warns Nina that a screen test is probably just a way of getting into her pants, but she wishes her luck anyway.
And downstairs, the Contessa is at the front desk. She announces that she's leaving forever, and she flounces off, saying to send all her bags to the Hotel Minerva in care of Dorazio. Now, the cab driver is confused when she gets in and asks to go to the same address. There is no Hotel Minerva anymore.
Nina goes to see the Contessa before she leaves for her screen test, but she's too late as the Contessa has already left. And now the Contessa goes to the location of the former Hotel Minerva. It's now the Hotel Forum.
She goes in and makes a huge scene because she wants them to take her to see Dorazio. And they're all like, who? And she doesn't accept the fact that Dorazio is not there.
And she says that we're supposed to be going together on holiday. And when somebody brings some suitcases past her, she says, well, see, there's proof that you've been lying to me this whole time, not knowing where he is. So she follows him outside, and she immediately gets hit by a car.
I have to admit, this is kind of a funny scene. She basically gets tapped by one car and then throws herself across the street into another car. Obviously, no one wants to really throw Ingrid Bergman around, but it's so fake looking.
We see Nina talking on the phone, and she's trying to track down the Contessa. She's actually at her screen test, and she crawled off to find a place to make this phone call. But they find her, and they put her in position for the screen test. And the screen test is kind of insane.
It's the chaos of lights being hung and then rehung, filters being added. Mario and the director arrive to see that Nina's all kinds of flustered at all this contradictory direction she's getting from everyone. And the fact that there are like 40 lights aimed at her right now.
And people are just yelling, and they're all doing their jobs, and they know what they're doing, but this is all new to Nina, so she's a little overwhelmed.
They're not really giving her instructions. They're just yelling at her for doing the wrong thing.
And then we see the Contessa is in a hospital bed, and there is a nun sitting with her.
This is Sister Pia, played by Ingrid Bergman's own daughter, Isabella Rossellini, in her screen debut.
And back at Nina's screen test, she notices Mario, and she's relieved to see a familiar face.
Mario is realizing that Nina is totally bombing here, but he thinks he has a way to trick her into performing in a way that will get her this part.
He says he's sorry that he never spoke to the Contessa, and she must have wonderful stories to tell. And Nina says she doesn't tell stories, she lives them.
And then he totally baits her by asking her about how the Contessa sold herself to men. And then Nina has to defend her, saying that the Contessa was in love with genius, not money. She made men feel like gods. And then Mario really sticks the knife in and suggests that the Contessa may be dead. And Nina says, nobody dies unless we let them. And then she really starts monologuing here.
Yeah, she goes through a whole gamut of emotions. And as she's doing this, the camera's pushing in. And she's no doubt nailing her audition right now.
Yeah, as long as the movie's about the Contessa, she's in the bag. Because the director calls her fantastic.
So Mario goes to Nina to share this news with her. And he's smiling all the way to the stool where she had been sitting. But as he gets there, his smile fades because she is no longer there.
I guess they lost her in the light.
And he didn't notice that she wasn't there until he got there 7 feet away. So he asked where she went, and one crew member says that she just ran out. He asked another, and he says he hadn't seen her at all.
Like I said, everyone's blinded by all those lights.
The third says she went out that way, but she didn't say a thing. She just kept on going.
It's no mystery to us. Eventually, we find Nina and Mario back at the hotel together. He's trying to cheer her up. He says the Contessa will be back soon. She's fine. We'll find her. And Nina is grateful. They go out, and on the way back, they run into Renato.
Renato says that the Contessa is in the hospital, and the hospital is called and asked for her things. So Nina immediately heads to the Contessa's room to grab her things, and then she goes to the hospital.
Yeah, she needs a nightgown and slippers. Only not really. We get to the hospital. The Contessa's in bed. She's getting the last rites. Sister Pia mentions that she's barely breathing.
Nina's waiting to see her, but by the time she is able to, the Contessa is gone.
Sister Pia says God is with her, not the other way around.
Sister Pia also suggests that the bag of things that Nina has brought could be left for another patient who might still be able to use them.
And she wants to know who's going to pay for the funeral. Either Nina can pay for it, or it's consignment to the pauper's grave. And of course, Nina won't have that. She'll pay for it. She does have all that money still. But before she goes, she's going to take that mirror.
Right, she's going to leave the items in the bag for another patient, but the mirror's going to stay with her. And Sister Pia says that the Contessa's final words were, "Is life over already?"
Nina thanks Sister Pia and then pulls out that mirror and decides to look deep into it. And she remembers what she said to the Contessa, that you made me think I was really somebody. She remembers the Contessa's advice to be herself, to be original, and then we flash forward.
Right, we're back to modern day, and Nina has finally arrived at her reception.
Well, when we come back, she's still looking at herself in the mirror. So this is like an hour and a half movie. So while she's been relaying the story or just imagining it in her head with the Baron sitting by, she's been staring in the mirror this whole time.
Well, she said it was a long story.
Right, but that's a long time to look at yourself, even if you are lost in thought.
So she gets out of the car, a young girl runs up and asks for her autograph.
In a very badly dubbed voice. She sounds like a grown-up woman pretending to be a little girl.
And the girl says that she wants to be just like Nina.
And I think you can guess what's going to happen next.
Yep, Nina says, never wish that. The world worships an original.
And we hit the credits with a reprise of the song, The Me I Haven't Met Yet. There are 3 songs in this movie, and they get played over and over again, except for that one cool torch song. But mercifully, it's over. Welcome back to the American International Podcast, where we're talking about A Matter of Time from 1976. The novel that this movie was based on, called The Film of Memory, was adapted for the stage by Paul Osborne, and it was called The Contessa. It came out in 1965, and it starred Vivien Leigh in the title role. Vincente Minnelli read the book in 1966, but he only obtained the film rights in 1973, and he raised the funds with Jack Skirball, who was a sometime producer. And eventually American International Pictures agreed to co-finance with the Italian producer Giulio Sabarigia.
And Jack Skirball was a philanthropist and had his money in many different ventures.
When Skirball brought the picture to Sam Arkoff in 1975, Arkoff said he liked the cast. He said, and I quote, "I had met Liza, who wanted to give her father another picture to direct, which would be the first time father and daughter had worked together." Over the years, Vincente Minnelli had become one of Hollywood's most respected directors, but by the time he directed this film, he was past his prime, and as a result, the picture suffered. And Arkoff continued, we got this from his autobiography, by the way, "Vincente hadn't worked on a film in 6 years. A couple of my friends in Hollywood warned me, be careful what you're getting yourself into. When he was making the big musicals, MGM surrounded him with the best cameramen and the best set designers. All of them knew what the picture needed without being asked. He probably won't have that kind of support in Italy."
Arkoff met Minnelli, though, and was charmed into hiring him. Shooting began in February 1975 in Rome and Venice and was meant to take 14 weeks. However, the movie went behind schedule almost immediately. When Arkoff was on set, he tried to coax Minnelli into taking more control of the production, which dragged on well beyond the original agreed-upon schedule. Cost-conscious American International Pictures executives, dismayed by filming delays and rising expenses, wrested control of the film from Vincente Minnelli. Minnelli's cut of the movie was over 3 hours, and Liza Minnelli's then-husband, Jack Haley Jr., was tasked with saving the film. He recut the film to 97 minutes. Vincente Minnelli later disowned it, and fellow director Martin Scorsese took out ads in the trade papers chastising AIP for its treatment of the screen legend.
Wow, they made some powerful enemies that day. All the re-editing notwithstanding, the movie didn't really perform well with critics. Vincent Canby wrote in the New York Times, "It is full of glittery costumes and spectacular props, performed by talented, sophisticated people who adopt the faux knife gestures of an earlier showbiz tradition, and though it is expensive, it sounds peculiarly tacky. The film has an air of an operetta from which the music has been removed. It's even acted that way. Because A Matter of Time has moments of real visual beauty, and because what the characters say to each other is mostly dumb, it may be a film to attend while wearing your earplugs. Ouch."
And Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times called it a fairly large disappointment as a movie, but as an occasion for reverie, it does very nicely. Once we've finally given up on the plot, a meandering and jumbled business, we're left with the opportunity to contemplate Ingrid Bergman at 60. And to contemplate Ingrid Bergman at any age is, I submit, a passable way to spend one's time. She possesses a radiant screen personality for people who love movie romance. A Matter of Time must have seemed like a dream project, and yet the movie just doesn't hold together.
We mentioned before that this is Isabella Rossellini's first film. It's also Charles Boyes' last. And it was the last movie directed by Vincente Minnelli. And just as this was the only time Vincente Minnelli directed his daughter, it's also the only time that Ingrid Bergman and Isabella Rossellini appear together on screen. So I think it's time we say our reviews for this giant mess of a movie. Jeff, what do you think of A Matter of Time?
Well, using our AIP scale, where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic, I'm going to be, I don't think, unreasonably rough on this film. I really want to like this movie. I think it's a good idea. I've never read the book, The Film of Memory. I'd never even heard of the stage version La Contessa. But I'd have to imagine that either is better than this film. This movie's just a mess. I love the idea of the message it's trying to send about how a person can inspire another person to do great things. And I also like the family element. As a father of 2 daughters myself, I like the idea of a director doing a project with his daughter and a star appearing on screen with her daughter. But beyond that, there's not really much in this movie to like. It's just weird. In many ways, it's weird. It has all kinds of glamorous costumes, and I'd say they're well done, but the context for each of them just doesn't make sense. It's flashbacks and flash forwards and dream sequences, and they just don't really need to be there. If anything, all it does is confirm the insanity that most of these characters seem to have. So I think this is the first time I've done it, but I am going to give this one a pathetic rating. As much as I want to like the movie, there is some stuff in it that I do like. You have to dig pretty hard to find that stuff. What did you think, Cheryl?
I think that you were not unreasonably hard on this movie. The main draw in watching this movie for me was Ingrid Bergman. When I found out, we were going to do this movie against our will, I thought at least it's an Ingrid Bergman movie. And just for the record, one of my very favorite movies of all time is Notorious with Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant. It's a Hitchcock movie. It's stylish. It's sexy. It's fun. It's funny. It's dangerous. It's scary. It's everything. It's got Nazis and they're bad, believe it or not. And I love it. I love that movie so much. And I've watched so many Ingrid Bergman movies. She was in Casablanca. She's so beautiful and she's got such style. And if I was going to emulate anybody in Hollywood, it would be her. Really messy personal life, but what the heck? Who didn't have one of those? And so finding out that she was in this movie, I was excited. But then when I started watching it, she's a demented Contessa. And that's basically her role. And we don't even get to see the flashbacks of her previous fantastic life as her. It's just somebody else listening to her stories and then inserting herself in as the star of these memories that aren't hers. She has no way of knowing if that's how it really went down, so that we have no way of knowing what really went down. It's just what she imagines it might have been like. And I think that's really unfair to this character. This character is actually really interesting. And the fact that the book was about her, the musical was named after her, and yet this movie, she's just a side character. She may be like a co-lead with Liza Minnelli, but she's just an afterthought in this film. And I think that it does a disservice not only to Ingrid Bergman, but also to the character of the Contessa. And just like you said, Jeff, it's a jumbled mess of dream sequences that don't matter because that's not what really happened. It's just one person. It's like a copy of a copy of a copy. It's so insignificant and so pointless to go through someone else's memories. And all of this could have been done with a third actress playing the younger version of the Contessa. That would have made this so much better. And then Nina could have drawn her inspiration from the Contessa's stories and then gone on to do her own thing, which was to become an actress. So that part of it truly enraged me. And then the second part is that I must confess right now, I do not like Liza Minnelli. I don't like the Liza of this movie where she's pulling faces all the time. She sings these same two songs over and over again. We argued about this. This is not a musical, and yet it has those elements where for no reason a song comes on. And she even sings at one point, but she's singing to herself. So is it a musical? No, but you can make a point that it has those sort of tendencies. And I don't like musicals unless they're really, really good and funny and subversive, like Evil Dead the musical. Great, love it. But this sucks. This music sucks, except for that one Gershwin song. That's a good song, even though it does, like you said, goes on too long. But having to hear these same two songs over and over again just drive me nuts. I'm so tired of them by midway through the movie. And it was 3 hours. I can't even imagine what we would have had to watch. All the schmaltz and probably like 4 more versions of the same songs. Ugh. I mean, I'm so glad somebody cut it in half. But
yeah, I like to think that maybe the 3-hour cut makes more sense, but that's probably not the case.
Even if it does, I wouldn't want to watch it. I don't want the outtakes. I don't want the director's cut. This was enough, and it was still too much. So, yeah, it's a P from me. P for pathetic, but P for poor Ingrid Bergman. She deserved better. I did like Cabaret, though. I'll put that on record.
So we'd like to thank you for listening to this tedious episode of the American International Podcast, and hopefully the fates will allow us to look at a more entertaining film next time.
I do hope so. We haven't watched it yet, so fingers crossed. And until next time, I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we'll meet you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.